Late on a chilly Monday morning in Washington, D.C., the bustling energy of a crowded subway filled the air. Commuters shuffled through DuPont Circle Station, their hurried footsteps echoing against the walls. The sounds of tired sighs, the rustle of newspapers, and the rhythmic screech of train wheels created a symphony that resonated throughout the underground. For many, this was just another day in the grind of city life. But for one young girl, it was a moment that would alter her life trajectory forever. Her name was Layla. At just 14 years old, she stood out in the throng of adults, a backpack casually tossed over her shoulder, her hair pulled into a loose bun. With earbuds dangling from her pocket, she listened to pop music, doing her best to zone out the chaos around her. On any other day, she would have been just a face among many. However, fate had other plans for her this particular morning. As the train came to a halt, the doors slid open, and Layla stepped inside, mentally preparing for the day ahead filled with classes and quizzes. But as she scanned the compact, swaying subway car, her heart sank. It was packed, standing room only, with weary commuters squeezing into every available space. Yet there, nestled between two older men, was a tantalizing open seat. Layla's eyes sparkled with relief at the prospect of resting her legs for the brief ride to school. Approaching the vacant seat, she noticed an oversized purse perched on it, clearly taking up space. A middle-aged woman sat beside the bag, her expression indifferent to the girl's presence. Layla hesitated for a moment but mustered a smile, her voice soft yet certain as she addressed the woman. "Excuse me, ma'am. May I sit here?" The woman, with a flicker of annoyance, barely glanced up, her response quick and sharp. "It's taken." She tugged the purse closer, as if Layla's request posed a threat to her possessions rather than a simple plea for a seat on the train. The air thickened with tension, a palpable sense of disbelief rippling through the other passengers as they registered the scene unfolding before them. Layla's cheeks flushed. She could feel the eyes of the crowd on her, but she stood her ground. "There's no one here," she stated calmly, her voice steady, cutting through the escalating quiet, a blend of courage and determination woven in her words. The woman's brows knitted in irritation. "I said it's taken. Go find another seat," she insisted, her tone rising defiantly. Layla's heart raced, yet something deep within her urged her to remain. This wasn't merely about claiming a space. It represented a crossroads, an all too familiar moment of confrontation shaped by biases and unkindness. Rather than escalating the conflict, Layla decided to keep quiet, the intensity of her resolve speaking volumes in that cramped subway car. It was as if the carriage had morphed into a stage, each passenger unwittingly cast in an unfolding drama that demanded their attention. As if sensing the gravity of the confrontation, a tall man sitting nearby interjected with a commanding voice. "What's the problem here?" Instead of acknowledging the man, the woman's gaze shot daggers at him. "It's my seat. I have the right to decide who sits here," she retorted, defensive, exposing the hidebound nature of her words, a truth she likely preferred to ignore. Eyes darted around the subway car, passengers exchanging glances filled with shock, disbelief, and a collective desire to intervene. But no one spoke up right away. Layla, feeling both vulnerable and empowered, stood stoically, her backpack weighing, but slightly on her shoulder as the train jerked forward. Time momentarily seized in the dance of indignation. Minutes felt like seconds as the crowded subway rattled along its route. Passengers began to shift their focus toward Layla. Her calm, assertive stance silently challenged the woman who daringly claimed ownership of the empty seat. Meanwhile, Cynthia, later identified as the confrontational woman, remained ensconced in her barrier, refusing to relent. "Why don't you just sit somewhere else?" Cynthia barked after another pause, her voice oozing irritation. Layla remained steady, facing the woman, a myriad of emotions swirling within her. She exhaled slowly, a confident chill running up her spine. Her heart raced, but she reminded herself that she had the right to occupy space. In another part of the subway car, a young man across from Layla decided enough was enough. He leaned forward, pulling out his phone to record the incident, sensing the importance of the moment. "You're recording this for accountability," he answered knowingly, his gaze unflinching. "People should see this." Cynthia scoffed disdainfully, arms crossed defensively. "And what exactly do you think you're capturing? A spoiled teenager thinking she can get whatever she wants?" Layla's heart sank a little, the sting of Cynthia's words palpable. But a woman several seats, conviction to return to her reasoning. Yet, the harder she tried to justify her actions, the more hollow her defenses grew. Meanwhile, Layla's experience transformed into an unexpected spotlight. Initially, the encounter seemed like just another awkward moment. She arrived at school, focusing on her subjects, lost in the rhythm of quizzes and spirited lunchtime debates with her friends about trivial matters. Yet, as the day progressed, everything changed when she sat down with her mother that evening, memories of the subway incident encroaching upon her thoughts. Scrolling through her phone led her to a post that stopped her in her tracks. A video of herself standing tall on the subway. Curiosity pulled her in, and she clicked on it without hesitating. The moment rushed back to her as she watched, her voice unfurling with calm defiance beneath hostile scrutiny. The comments began to flood in, praise for her composure and reminders of similar experiences others had faced. "Wow, so much grace from someone so young," one comment read, while another proclaimed, "This young girl is going to change the world someday." Taken aback, Layla's heart raced alongside the burgeoning wave of attention. "I didn't even know someone was filming," she muttered, astonishment coloring her voice. Her mother, who had been quietly observing her reaction, leaned closer, pride glistening in her eyes. "You handled yourself beautifully, Layla," she said softly, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. Still, that sense of pride was overshadowed by an unfamiliar discomfort. Layla reflected on the overwhelming exposure. A moment she hadn't intended to share with the world had suddenly become a spectacle, an invitation for others to dissect her life. While at her core she was a quiet girl, a writer with a passion for stories, the implications of her newfound public persona weighed heavily on her shoulders. As Layla sat with her thoughts, she felt a swell of conflicting emotions. There was gratitude for the outpouring of encouragement, yet the voices clamoring for her attention felt overwhelming. Sleep did not come easily that night, nor did resolution. When her mother checked in on her the following evening, Layla sat with a blank page before her, grappling with the barrage of expectations poised against her. "I don't know what to say," she confessed, the concern in her voice betraying her internal struggle. "Everyone's asked me to do something." Her mother nodded. "You don't have to be anything you're not ready for, Layla. But if you feel like speaking your truth might make a difference, then maybe it is time to share." Those words resonated even after her mother stepped out of the room. That night, beneath the glow of her desk lamp, Layla began to write, not for the public, nor to play the part of a hero, merely for herself. She penned reflections about the subway, the silent tension that enveloped her, and the small yet potent decision to stand her ground. As the days melded into each other, Layla's words took on a life of their own. Encouraged by her mother, she turned them into a post. Simple, yet powerful. "Sometimes standing still is the loudest thing you can do," she wrote. This wasn't just a personal reflection, but a call to the countless whispers that often go unheard. It struck a chord, reverberating across social media. Layla's brief post ignited discussions. Stories began surfacing from places she never imagined. A man in California recounted a time he had been denied service at a diner in the 70s, wishing he'd spoken up. A teenage girl shared how she'd been told to leave a cafeteria table, belonging to a different group. Each story felt real, woven intricately into the fabric of society. Meanwhile, Cynthia observed the evolving narrative from her secluded life. A lingering unease brewed within her, battling against her instinct to discount the surge of perspectives. Reading Layla's post, she was confronted by realities she preferred to ignore. These voices were not just random stories. They were individual lives, a mirror reflecting her own insensitivities. One afternoon, while observing a video of Layla reading her work at a local community event, something shifted within Cynthia. The weight of Layla's words seemed to transcend the video, resonating within her in a way that forced deep reflection. "I didn't want to be a symbol. I just wanted to sit," Layla stated, her earnestness striking through the screen. "But sometimes what we want doesn't matter as much as what we need to do." Cynthia felt tears welling in her eyes as she closed her laptop. She began to confront the moments leading to that fateful subway ride. It became apparent that those tiny biases she had always ignored were weighing her decisions and beliefs down. No longer could she look away, hoping the world would simply carry on. In the weeks that followed, Cynthia tentatively reached out to Layla through a mutual acquaintance. It wasn't an apology in the traditional sense, but a gesture towards understanding. Layla agreed to meet, establishing at the outset that forgiveness didn't negate the lessons learned and the moments of growth she had experienced. Their encounter, brief yet meaningful, positioned them at the crossroads of empathy and accountability. It became the foundation for something transformative. The conversation sparked between strangers weaved threads of understanding through their lives, their actions rippling into the communities around them. In the months following that defining subway encounter, Layla carved out her role in shaping conversations around respect and vigilance. Her words became touchpoints for many seeking courage to challenge biases they experience daily. Even while not seeking fame, Layla found herself featured in local media outlets, bringing with her a message that carried weight far beyond her expectations. Each time she was asked about her experience, she echoed the same sentiment. "It wasn't about making a statement, it was about standing in my truth. If that helps someone else, then I'm glad." Cynthia embarked on a personal journey different from Layla's public one, yet equally transformative. She began attending workshops focused on implicit biases, volunteering at community outreach programs, and digging into the intricacies of her past decisions. Walking into the meeting rooms felt immense at first, her sense of self-shame often masked by discomfort. However, she persevered. While organizing books for a local program one day, Cynthia came across a handwritten notebook filled with children's stories, glimpses into lives much like her own. When she saw Layla's name among the entries, it resonated. A sense of pride washed over her. For the first time in a while, she saw the reflection of her actions in a new light. A sense of hope blossomed in her heart, knowing she had the opportunity not only to change her own mindset, but to influence others' perspectives. In the weeks and months that stretched ahead, Layla's voice carried forward. She became a quiet, yet persistent advocate, sharing the lessons learned and igniting conversations on respect in schools across the district. Children began speaking up more. Advocates emerged. And slowly, the systemic barriers erected by biases began to falter, piece by piece. In classrooms, discussions blossomed regarding fairness and kindness, creating opportunities for students to share their experiences openly. Hearts began to open as subway passengers, once reluctant, started to make room for others, all rooted in the amplified ripple effect set in motion. At a community event one evening, Layla stood before a microphone, her notebook clutched tightly in her hand, ready to share a new piece she penned reflecting on her journey. Sometimes the hardest thing is to speak up. Other times, the hardest thing is to stand still and let the silence speak for you. But either way, the courage to face what's wrong and make it right is what ultimately changes the world. As her eyes scanned the crowd, she spotted Cynthia. They exchanged a brief nod, an acknowledgement of growth. The event came to a close, and as the gathered audience dispersed, Layla stepped off the stage, enveloped by family and friends, allowing warmth to replace the nervousness tugging at her heart. The story she shared was not the final chapter. It was merely one segment of an ongoing conversation. Each moment of kindness and resilience had a role to play in shaping lives. This journey illustrates the profound impact of shared experiences, emphasizing the importance of standing up for oneself, while also creating space for vital conversations that promote empathy and understanding. Every voice, whether it's a quiet standing moment on the subway or resonant words shared at a podium, contributes to the intricate fabric that weaves our communities together. If anything, Layla's story reassures us that standing up for what's right matters, and it reminds us of the undeniable strength that comes from remaining true to ourselves. So, as you reflect on your role in this narrative, consider the power of your actions. How will you challenge the biases that shape your everyday life? What small steps can you take to create space for those around you? Remember, even the most thoughtful, quiet actions resonate far beyond our immediate circle. If you found this story moving, take a moment to reflect on how you can carve your path toward kindness, openness, and understanding. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire change. Because together, one moment at a time, we can build a better world for everyone.